It was the first weekend of October when four best friends, Jason, Mark, Emily, and Sarah, decided to take a break from their busy college lives and rent out a cabin deep in the woods of northern Michigan. Jason was the jokester, the kind of guy who never seemed to take anything seriously. Mark was quieter, more practical, the one who always double-checked the directions. Emily was adventurous, dragging the group into trouble more often than not, while Sarah was the cautious one, the mom friend, who packed extra snacks and a first aid kit. The drive up was long, the trees bleeding into a sea of oranges and reds under a pale autumn sky. They laughed, played music, and talked about everything from college crushes to horror movies. "This is exactly what we need," Emily said from the back seat. "No homework, no exams, just the four of us, some beer, and a creepy old cabin in the woods." "Creepy?" Sarah raised an eyebrow. Emily grinned. "Of course. Cabins in the woods are always creepy." By the time they arrived, the sun had dipped low, the sky stained purple. The cabin looked older than the pictures online, logs darkened with age, the windows clouded with grime. A single lantern hung above the porch, flickering weakly as if it was struggling to stay alive. "Charming," Jason said, hauling their bags out of the trunk. "Definitely serial killer chic." "Shut up," Sarah muttered, though her eyes lingered on the tree line, where the woods seemed unnaturally dense. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and dust. The floor creaked under every step, and the fireplace was filled with ashes from long ago. Still, there was a rustic charm to it, the kind of place you could imagine writing a novel in if you ignored the cobwebs. They unpacked, cooked a simple dinner, and by nightfall, they were sitting by the fireplace with beers in hand, laughing about high school memories. It felt safe, cozy, like old times, until Jason noticed the carvings. The next morning, Jason stepped outside to gather firewood. That's when he saw it. On the trunk of a tree just a few feet from the cabin, strange markings were carved into the bark. At first, he thought it was just initials, lovers marking their territory. But as he leaned closer, he realized they weren't letters. They were symbols, circles within circles, sharp lines intersecting like broken bones. "Guys," Jason called, waving the others outside. They gathered around the tree. "What the hell is it?" Mark asked, frowning. "Some kind of sigil?" Emily suggested. "Like witchcraft stuff?" Sarah shivered. "Don't joke. It's probably nothing, just kids messing around." But as they explored further into the woods, they realized it wasn't just one tree. Nearly every tree around the cabin had the same markings, carved deep, fresh, like someone or something had been there recently. That night, the wind howled through the trees like a living thing. The cabin's walls groaned with every gust, and the fire sputtered as if it might die at any moment. Jason tried to lighten the mood by telling ghost stories, but Sarah wasn't having it. "Seriously, stop," she said, glaring. "We're in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by creepy carvings." "This isn't funny." Jason smirked but dropped it. They all went to bed, the laughter fading into uneasy silence. Sometime after midnight, Mark woke to a sound. At first, he thought it was branches tapping against the window, but the rhythm was too deliberate. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks again. He sat up, heart racing, listening. The knocks came from the front porch. Slow, heavy, patient. Mark tiptoed to the window and peered out. At the edge of the lantern light, he thought he saw a figure standing just beyond the trees. Tall, still, watching. But when he blinked, It was gone. The next morning, Mark told the others what he'd heard. "Probably just an animal," Emily said, though her voice lacked conviction. Jason laughed. "What kind of animal knocks on doors?" "Bigfoot." But Sarah looked uneasy. "I told you this place was a bad idea." They decided to hike deeper into the woods to shake the paranoia. The autumn air was crisp, their boots crunching on fallen leaves. But as they walked, a strange silence settled around them. No birds, no squirrels, just the sound of their own footsteps. Then, faintly, they heard it. Whispers. At first, it was so soft they thought it was the wind, but the further they went, the clearer it became. Voices. Dozens of them, overlapping, speaking words they couldn't understand. Sarah grabbed Emily's arm. "Do you hear that?" Emily nodded, pale. Jason forced a laugh. "It's just the trees creaking." "Come on, you guys." But then the whispers stopped all at once, and the woods fell completely silent. They stumbled into a small clearing. In the center stood a circle of stones, blackened as if scorched by fire. And in the middle of that circle, lying on the ground, was an animal skull. A deer. Its antlers snapped, its empty socket staring straight at them. Carved into its forehead was the same symbol they'd seen on the trees. Sarah gagged, covering her mouth. Emily whispered, "We should go back." Now. But Jason, nervous energy bubbling, stepped closer. "It's probably some hunter's prank. Chill." Before he could finish, the trees around the clearing rustled violently. All four of them froze. From the shadows, something moved. A tall shape, wrongly proportioned. Its limbs too long, its head tilting at an unnatural angle. The friends bolted, sprinting back through the trees, branches slashing their faces, hearts hammering. They didn't stop until the cabin came into view. But when they turned back, the woods were still. Empty. As if nothing had been there at all. That evening, the group tried to shake off what had happened. Jason opened a few beers, Mark stoked the fire, Emily curled up with a blanket, and Sarah sat by the window, staring out at the dark woods. But no one could really relax. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. By midnight, they decided to lock up and head to bed. Mark double-checked the doors, but as he slid the heavy bolt across, he froze. On the outside of the cabin door, scratched deep into the wood, was a new carving, the same symbol. "Guys, come look at this." The others gathered around. Jason's bravado melted into silence. Sarah whispered, "It's following us." They all exchanged uneasy glances, no one daring to say what they were all thinking. Whatever was out there knew where they were. The storm rolled in around 2 a.m. Thunder shook the cabin, and the rain lashed against the windows. Emily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, every sound amplified by the storm. Finally, she sat up, clutching her blanket, and glanced towards the window. Her heart nearly stopped. A pale face was pressed against the glass. Not human. Its features were stretched, skin paper-thin, mouth wide with jagged, broken teeth. Empty black sockets stared directly at her. She screamed. The others burst into the room as lightning lit up the sky, but the window was empty. Rain poured down the glass. No footprints, no sign of anything. Jason swore under his breath. "We're losing it." But Emily's shaking hands clutched her chest. "It was there. I saw it. I swear." And Sarah whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "It's inside the woods. And now it wants in." They tried to stay together in the living room, candles burning low. The storm howled outside, but it was the sound above them that froze their blood. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. dragging across the attic floor. The cabin didn't even have an attic, or at least none they'd found. Jason grabbed the poker from the fireplace, his hand trembling. It's probably raccoons or something. But deep down, they all knew better. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, 3 loud knocks from directly above. Boom, boom, boom. The entire ceiling shook. Dust rained down, the candles flickering. Mark shouted, "We need to leave, now!" But outside, the storm raged too violently. They were trapped, and whatever was above them wasn't going anywhere. The storm refused to let up. The cabin felt like it was holding its breath. Every creak of the wood sounded too deliberate, too heavy. Jason, unable to take it anymore, marched toward the hallway. "If there's something up there, I'm checking." "Don't," Sarah pleaded, grabbing his arm. But it was too late. Jason dragged a chair under a square wooden panel in the ceiling. It was small, dusty, with no handle, just a hidden trapdoor. "I told you," he muttered, his voice shaking. "Attic." He jabbed the fireplace poker into the panel and pushed. It opened with a groan. The stench hit them first, a rotten, sweet odor like decayed meat. Jason held the candle high, trying to peer inside. Something dripped. A thick, dark liquid fell onto his arm. Blood. Jason stumbled back, the candle flickering violently. The attic above wasn't empty. Shapes moved in the dark, crawling, shifting, watching, and then whispers. Dozens of voices speaking in unison, words none of them could understand. Before Jason could close the trapdoor, a hand shot down, pale, bony fingers with jagged black nails. It grabbed his wrist and pulled. Jason screamed, struggling, the poker clanging to the floor. Mark grabbed Jason's other arm, yanking him back. Emily shrieked, covering her ears as the whispers turned into deafening screeches. With a violent jerk, Jason was released, thrown backward into the wall. His shoulder cracked against the wood. Then, one by one, faces began to appear in the opening. The same pale face Emily had seen in the window. Not one, not two. Dozens. All staring down with empty black sockets, mouths wide open, jagged teeth chattering like clicking bones. The whispers filled the room. "Join us!" The trapdoor slammed shut with such force the entire cabin shook. The candle went out. Darkness swallowed them. They huddled together the rest of the night, too terrified to move, whispering prayers and promises, waiting for the storm to pass. At some point, exhaustion overtook them. When Sarah woke, it was morning. The sunlight pierced through the windows. The storm was gone. Relieved, she shook the others awake. They gathered their bags, not even bothering to eat, desperate to leave. As Mark opened the cabin door, he froze. His face went pale. The clearing outside wasn't empty anymore. All around the cabin, hanging from the trees like grotesque decorations, were wooden effigies. Dozens of them, each one carved with the same symbol, and each one bore the face of one of them: Sarah, Emily, Jason, and Mark. The final effigy, hanging directly in front of the cabin door, was Sarah's. Its mouth was wide open, carved in a silent scream. The wind rustled through the forest, carrying a whisper only she could hear. "You never left." The 4 friends, Derek, Lily, Connor, and Amanda, had been planning the trip for weeks. Derek's uncle owned a remote cabin right by Willow Lake, about 2 hours outside of town. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, a place to disconnect, to laugh, swim, and drink under the stars. When they pulled up, the lake shimmered like glass, reflecting the fading light of sunset. The cabin itself was old but charming, with a wide porch and a rickety dock stretching into the water. "This is perfect," Amanda said, stepping out of the car, her sneakers crunching against gravel. Connor dropped their bags on the porch. No neighbors, no noise, just us and nature. But Lily, the quiet one, hesitated. She stood by the water's edge, staring at the dark lake as the surface rippled unnaturally, almost as if something large had just slipped beneath. Feels too quiet, she muttered. Derek laughed, tossing an arm around her shoulders. That's the point, Lil. No city noise, just us and the fish. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something in that lake was watching them. The friends spent the evening grilling burgers on the porch, drinking beers, and playing cards by lantern light. The mood was light, full of teasing and laughter. But when midnight came, the lake changed. The stillness broke. Small ripples spread across the water, even though there was no wind. Connor, already tipsy, leaned against the railing and squinted. You see that? Derek shrugged. Fish, dude. But Amanda noticed it too. The ripples weren't random. They were circling, slowly tightening, like something moving beneath the surface. Then came the sound. A low, gurgling hum, almost like a voice, but warped, rising from the water. Lily stood up, her face pale. Let's go inside. But Connor grinned and grabbed a flashlight. Relax, I'll prove it's nothing. He shined the beam across the water. For a second, everything was normal. The light caught ripples and reeds. And then, a face broke the surface. Pale, bloated, eyes white and unblinking, hair floating around like weeds. A woman. Her mouth opened wider than any human jaw could, water spilling from it, the sound twisting into that same low hum. Connor dropped the flashlight. The beam tumbled into the water and went out. The lake fell silent again. The group rushed back inside, bolting the cabin door. Connor's hands still shook as he lit another lantern. I saw her, he whispered. There was a woman in the lake. She wasn't alive. Amanda's face was pale. You're drunk. You probably imagined. I didn't imagine it, Connor snapped, voice cracking. Her face was... He stopped himself, burying his head in his hands. Lily stood near the window, peering out toward the water. The lake was still again, perfectly smooth, reflecting the stars. But then she heard it, a faint humming, coming not from outside, but from the walls of the cabin. She pressed her ear against the wood. The sound was there, vibrating faintly, like a voice trapped inside. Guys, she whispered, it's in here with us. The lantern flickered. Shadows stretched across the cabin walls, moving in ways that didn't match their bodies. And then the humming grew louder. Amanda screamed as words formed from the sound. Come back to me. Desperate for answers, Derek searched the cabin. He tore through old cupboards, drawers, and a trunk by the bed. Finally, he found it, a leather-bound journal, its cover warped with age. He opened it on the kitchen table, the others gathering around. The handwriting was messy, frantic. She drowned in the lake. They tried to bury her, but the water would not let her go. Her body floats, searching, waiting. She calls at night. She takes whoever answers page after page described drownings, fishermen, campers, even children, always at night, always pulled into the water by the Lady of Willow Lake. Amanda's hands shook as she closed the journal. We shouldn't be here. But Connor, pale and sweating, whispered, she already knows we are. The humming stopped. For a moment, silence. Just the sound of the wind through the trees. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp knocks at the cabin door. Everyone froze. Amanda whispered, don't open it. But Derek, heart pounding, stepped closer. Maybe it's knock, knock, knock. Louder this time, shaking the wood. The lantern flickered again. Connor backed into the corner, muttering, "Don't answer. Don't answer." From outside, a woman's voice called softly, "Connor, come to me." His head snapped toward the door, eyes wide. It was his mother's voice. Amanda grabbed his arm. "It's not her." But the voice came again, sweet and desperate. "Connor, please, I'm waiting." Connor began to move toward the door, as if pulled by invisible strings. And with every step, the lake outside rippled darker. Despite Amanda's grip, Connor's body kept moving forward, as if dragged by something unseen. His eyes glazed over, his lips moving silently to words only he could hear. Derek lunged. "Don't!" But it was too late. Connor's hand slid the bolt free. The door swung open on its own, groaning against the wind. The night outside was black, but the shape standing on the porch was clearer than daylight. A woman, her dripping hair clinging to her pale face, eyes glowing milky white. Water poured from her open mouth as she whispered, "Come back to me." Connor stumbled forward, as if hypnotized. The others screamed, but before they could grab him, the woman reached out with long, dripping fingers and pulled him into the dark. The door slammed shut. The three remaining friends burst outside into the freezing night air. The lake was alive, rippling violently under the moonlight. Connor was already waist-deep in the water, thrashing, his mouth open in a silent scream. The woman was pulling him deeper, her face inches from his, whispering into him. Derek sprinted down the dock, but before he could reach Connor, the surface broke open. Hands, dozens of pale, rotting hands, surged up from the water, clutching Connor's legs, his arms, his throat. He disappeared beneath the surface in seconds. Amanda screamed his name, falling to her knees. Lily dragged her back, shouting, "It's too late! It's too late!" And then, silence. The lake was still again. Connor was gone. Shaken and terrified, the three survivors packed their things before sunrise. They didn't speak on the drive home. The image of Connor's face vanishing beneath the water burned into their minds. When they returned the keys to Derek's uncle, they didn't mention what had happened. But Derek asked one question. "Why didn't you ever tell us about the lake?" The uncle's face darkened. "I thought it was just stories. Warnings to keep kids from swimming at night." He paused, looking Derek dead in the eyes. "But I should have told you. No one ever leaves Willow Lake untouched." That night, Amanda woke in her bed at home to the sound of dripping water. She sat up, heart racing. Her floor was wet, her bedsheets soaked. And in the corner of her room, pale hands pressed against the wall as if trying to push through. A woman's voice whispered from the shadows, "Connor is waiting for you." It was supposed to be fun. Just four best friends, Ethan, Mia, Jordan, and Chloe, piling into Ethan's beat-up SUV for a late-night road trip across state lines. Music blaring, snacks in the back seat, laughter filling the car. For the first 2 hours, it was exactly that. But once they left the interstate and hit Route 191, the mood shifted. The road was narrow, the trees pressing in close on both sides. The radio started picking up static, the GPS lost its signal, and their cell phones went dark. "Guess we're really off the grid," Jordan joked, though his laugh was uneasy. Mia frowned, peering through the windshield. "Why is it so empty?" "It's Friday night. Shouldn't there be at least one other car?" The road stretched on, black and endless, lit only by the SUV's headlights. No gas stations, no towns, no signs of life, only silence. After another hour of driving, the fuel gauge dipped low. Ethan cursed under his breath. Finally, up ahead, a flicker of light. A gas station. It looked ancient, like something frozen in time. A single pump stood beneath a rusted canopy. The convenience store was dark, except for a faint glow inside. "Thank God," Chloe muttered. They pulled in. The pump was old. Its screen cracked, but somehow it worked. Ethan filled the tank while the others stretched their legs. Mia peeked through the dusty store window. Inside, shelves sagged with rotting cans, and a single bulb flickered over the counter. Behind it stood a man, tall, thin, his face pale and expressionless. He didn't move, didn't blink. Mia stumbled back. "There's someone in there." But when Ethan walked over to look, the store was empty. Back on the road, the SUV was quieter. The gas station encounter hung heavy in the air. That's when Chloe spotted him. A man walking along the shoulder, thumb out, head bowed. He wore a torn jacket and muddy boots, his long hair hiding his face. "Don't even think about it," Mia said, but Ethan slowed down. He could need help. As the SUV passed, the hitchhiker lifted his head. His eyes were pure white. Jordan shouted, "Go! Go!" Ethan floored it. The SUV roared down the highway, the man vanishing into the night behind them. But when Chloe glanced in the side mirror, her blood froze. He wasn't behind them anymore. He was running alongside the car, keeping up, his face pressed to the glass, mouth twisted into an impossible grin. The SUV screeched around a bend and slowed. Up ahead, a cluster of buildings appeared, dimly lit under the moonlight. "Finally," Chloe whispered. "Civilization." But as they drove in, their hope vanished. The town was wrong. Storefronts sagged with decay, windows were broken, and the street was littered with rusted cars covered in dust, as if abandoned decades ago. Yet every streetlight buzzed faintly with power. Mia leaned forward. "Where is everyone?" They passed a diner. The neon sign flickered weakly. "Open." But inside, the booths were filled with shadows, human-shaped, sitting perfectly still, heads bowed. Ethan gripped the wheel tighter. "We're not stopping." But then the SUV's engine sputtered and died. The friends sat in silence, breath fogging the glass, as the SUV coasted to a stop. The diner door creaked open. Out stepped a man in a tattered apron, his skin gray, his eyes milky white like the hitchhiker's. He didn't walk. He glided, feet dragging unnaturally against the pavement. "Don't move," Jordan whispered. The man stopped in the middle of the road, his head tilted, his mouth opened slowly. A chorus of voices poured out. Not one voice, hundreds. "Turn back." The streetlights flickered violently. In the diner behind him, all the shadowy figures lifted their heads at once. Dozens of glowing white eyes locked on the SUV. Panic surged. Ethan twisted the key desperately. The SUV coughed, then roared back to life. "Hold on!" he yelled, slamming the gas. The SUV lurched forward. The man in the apron didn't move until the last second, his face pressed against the windshield as they plowed through. Then, gone. Just gone. The SUV barreled out of town. The glowing eyes followed them, watching from the darkness until the buildings disappeared behind. Inside the car, no one spoke. Their faces were pale, breaths ragged. Finally, Chloe whispered, "We never should have taken this road." Jordan looked back, trembling. "We didn't take it. It took us." And in the reflection of the rearview mirror, Ethan swore he saw the hitchhiker sitting in the back seat, grinning. For miles, they drove in silence. The GPS was dead, their phones still useless, and the gas gauge, which Ethan had just filled at the old station, was already slipping toward empty. Mia clutched her seatbelt. This doesn't make sense. We've been driving straight, but we should have hit the interstate by now. Jordan stared out the window. The same stretch of trees flashed past again and again, identical, as if they were circling. Then Chloe whispered, "Guys, look." Up ahead, glowing faintly in the distance, was the same gas station, the same cracked pump, the same flickering sign. They had never left. The SUV screeched to a halt. Ethan slammed the wheel in panic. "No, this can't be happening." That's when the headlights flickered, and a figure appeared in the beam. The hitchhiker. His torn jacket hung heavier now, dripping with black liquid. His white eyes gleamed, his grin impossibly wide. He stepped toward the SUV slowly, each foot dragging like it weighed tons. The friends screamed. Ethan floored the gas, the SUV surging forward. But as they passed, the hitchhiker wasn't on the road anymore. He was inside the car, in the back seat, his face inches from Chloe's. She shrieked, scrambling forward. The SUV swerved violently as Ethan lost control. The road twisted, the world spinning, and they crashed. Ethan's eyes fluttered open. The SUV was still. Smoke rose from the hood. The others groaned, dazed but alive. He stumbled out, clutching his arm. The crash had thrown them onto another stretch of highway. At first it looked normal. Empty road, quiet woods, a faint glow up ahead. But as his eyes adjusted, his heart turned to ice. It wasn't a new road. It was the same road. The same gas station flickered in the distance. And standing beneath its rusted canopy was the hitchhiker, waiting, his grin wider than ever. Mia climbed out, shaking her head violently. No, we're not doing this again." But Ethan didn't answer, because in the shattered glass of the SUV's window, he saw their reflections, and all four of them had glowing white eyes. It was supposed to be one last fun night before senior year began. Emily had invited her 3 best friends, Samantha, Lily, and Kate, over for a sleepover at her grandmother's old farmhouse on the edge of town. The place had been empty for years, ever since her grandmother passed away. The shutters creaked in the wind, the porch sagged, and the surrounding woods pressed close, as though hiding something. "Looks like a haunted house," Kate joked as they carried in their sleeping bags. "Perfect for tonight," Emily grinned. "Scary movies, junk food, and no parents." But as the front door shut behind them with a heavy thud, Samantha frowned. For a second, she thought she saw a figure standing at the top of the stairs, watching. Later, after pizza and soda, the girls sat in a circle in the dimly lit living room, the only light coming from a single lamp. "Let's play a game," Lily said, her voice mischievous. They settled on the whisper game, where one person whispered a scary made-up story into another's ear, and it passed around until the last person said it out loud. Emily leaned over to Samantha first. Her whisper was playful. Samantha giggled and passed it on to Kate. But by the time it reached Lily, the room had grown colder. When Lily repeated it out loud, her voice shook. She said, "There's someone else in the room with us." The laughter died instantly, because all 4 of them heard it. The slow creak of a floorboard upstairs. They tried to shake it off. A draft, an old house, their imaginations running wild. But as the night stretched on, the house seemed to come alive. Shadows shifted across the walls where no one was moving. A door upstairs slammed shut. And when Kate went to the bathroom, she came back pale as a ghost. "The mirror, it..." Her voice cracked. "It showed someone behind me." But when I turned, there was no one. Emily bit her lip. Okay, maybe this wasn't such a good idea. That's when the lamp flickered out, and in the dark, a voice whispered, clear, close, and not belonging to any of them. Can I play too? The girls clung to each other in the pitch-black living room. Emily fumbled with her phone flashlight, its weak beam trembling across the room. That was just one of us messing around, right? She whispered. But none of them admitted it. To prove they weren't scared, Kate suggested they check upstairs. If we don't, we'll just sit here freaking out all night. So they went, one by one, up the creaking stairs, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. At the top, a long hallway stretched ahead, lined with closed doors. Which one? Samantha asked. Lily pointed to the farthest door, the one that was slightly ajar. A faint shadow moved inside. They pushed the door open, revealing an old bedroom frozen in time. Dusty quilts, faded wallpaper, and on the far wall, a tall, cracked mirror. The glass shimmered strangely in their flashlight beams, reflecting them back in odd, distorted angles. Kate muttered, "That's the mirror I saw earlier." As they approached, something shifted. Their reflections didn't move exactly in sync. Emily gasped when she noticed her reflection was smiling, wide and wrong, even though her lips weren't. Then the reflections started moving on their own. The girls stood frozen in terror as their mirrored selves slowly raised their hands and pointed behind them. The girls whipped around. The room was empty, but the air grew ice cold, and in the corner of the bedroom, a shadow peeled away from the wall, tall, thin, with no face, only hollow white eyes that gleamed in the dark. It whispered, "You let me in when you played the game." The girls screamed, bolting for the door. But the farmhouse twisted around them, stairs stretching too long, doors slamming shut on their own, the house trapping them like prey. The last thing Samantha saw before the lights went out was the mirror. Their reflections were still there, still moving. But this time, there were only 3.